Hey everybody, happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are having a great day, wonderful week. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, Gunpla, and gaming. I'm your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, and joining me as always, the Gundam explainer, the newsbreaker today, I would
Ooh,
say.
yeah.
Adam Blue, how are you, man?
Doing good. Yeah, news breaking hot. Like, to be honest, I had I don't know how it popped up, but it was something that said, "Hey, this I'm doing an interview with Jim Mickle in 5 days," or so it was like an Instagram. I'm like, "How is this targeted to me?" Because I don't know this dude. He's in the video description, but
It's like you set up an alert on Jim Mickle's name, and it's like,
yeah,
uh,
yeah, I don't know. And then so I actually forgot about it, and 5 days had passed, and then it popped up in my feed, and I'm like, "Well, wait a minute."
that's
And
the
then
thing.
so it was an hour-long interview. I just skipped to the end when he started talking about Gundam. I was lucky that
That's
uh,
so awesome. So yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, Adam dropped a video earlier today covering Jim Mickle's announcement over on a podcast about the Gundam movie, breaking some news there. Yeah, go check it out after the stream if you haven't already. We're probably going to talk a little bit about it. Like I said, there's one thing. Well, like I was telling Adam before we hopped on stream, there's one thing about his announcement that became very apparent to me, and I want to talk about it in relevance in relation to uh, Gquuuuux, because
Mhm.
I think that there's something that we can take away from there. So Jim
Ooh,
Mickle, the director of the forthcoming live action Gundam movie, made it clear that he is not a lifelong Gundam fan. And I want to talk about why that's probably a good thing. Why and
yeah.
how that's probably a good thing. But we're not going to get into that just yet because obviously there's a whole bunch of other announcements we got to get to. And obviously, if you guys saw the thumbnail, I think that we're going to strike a nerve with the conversation that we're having tonight. And I
Yeah.
don't want to get, too off into the weeds talking about other stuff. I definitely want to get to that topic first and foremost. G sucks.
That was good.
So yeah, I considered like burying the lead a little bit and just saying like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show off a couple projects and then we're gonna talk about Gquuuuuux a little bit and then like then I would express my true opinions. But I thought like heck with it. I'm just gonna throw it out there and let you guys stew on it a little bit. But I think we're gonna have a pretty fun conversation about the last episode, or well, the most recent episode. I guess the last episode's upcoming next week.
Yeah.
And I mean, where do they go from here?
Season 2? I don't know.
Oof. Hopefully not. Uh, so some news and announcements I have for you guys. Like obviously the Gundam movie video that Adam dropped earlier today. I did unfortunately this past weekend smash my laptop, which is unfortunate. I was working and then I had to go grab the baby. The laptop slid off my lap, hit the floor. It seemed fine, but then the next day uh, it became clear that the screen is totally borked and I can't work on it. Not the worst thing because obviously, hey, we're still streaming here, we're still live,
Oh,
but
yeah.
unfortunately, it does mean that any progress that I was making on both the RTS game that we were working on last week and some of the 3D models for 3D printing, that's going to be on hold until the new screen comes in later this week, and then I can install it, and we'll be back up and operational. That's one of the nice things about having such an old, out of date computer is that like the new screen assembly was like 160 bucks, which if like for instance 5 years ago when I broke it, it cost like 380 to replace the screen. So
Wow. Well,
clearly I
what
have a problem
was
with screens.
yeah, what is it what kind of laptop is it? What did it go for when you got it?
So it is a 2014 MacBook Pro, the 15-inch model. And when I bought it, it was around 3 grand. It was actually baked into the tuition
Whoa.
of my grad school.
Oh, dude, you've been able to use this same laptop the whole time. That is awesome.
And believe it or not, that laptop streams better than my newer desktop. So
Wow, dude, that's pretty cool. Does that say something about Apple, you think?
maybe, or maybe I'm just much more. I don't know. I like to take care of my things and get
Yeah,
as much use of them out of them as I can. Like I had that iPhone 5S
yeah,
for like the longest time, and
uh,
then only upgraded to this phone when the new baby came, because obviously I wanted to take pictures of the new baby and not just because I wanted to play G Generation Eternal.
Exactly, exactly. No, that's cool.
Um, yeah, my cat is like trying to get in my lap, but he's like too fat and can't jump up, so he like pulled
Aw.
everything down.
Yeah, they get jealous when we're talking. I know, what's up with that?
But yeah, so I do want to share with you guys, happy belated Father's Day to you, Adam,
Oh,
fellow
yeah,
father.
thank you, of
I
course.
saw that over on Instagram that you went to the Gashapon store as your Father's Day treat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, the Grapevine Mills Mall near me, it's kind of a I guess, a famous mall. People, like, drive around to go there. But, yeah, they have the Gashapon store. They also have something, is it called, like, Miso or Misu? It's another store that's actually a famous Japanese toy store, I guess. I really didn't realize it until I got home, and, I have those 3D printed, Godzilla buildings that Andrew, GoGFX made
Yeah,
for me, and there was a sticker of that store. I was like, "Oh, this must be a well-known store in Japan then." But they had and that was actually I think a video that dropped today. It was the, Chinese New Year Gundam, the Kunio Okawara designed Chinese New Year. That stuff
yeah.
is so cool. So I got 2 of those. They also had some other Gundam stuff I got, one other thing. Um, and yeah, it was just fun, and then I was like, "Hey, I'll have a picture next to the Mighty Strike Freedom," because what 41-year-old does that? And it's like, me.
I don't know, these weird seed freaks.
Yeah, right. It's
But
like
then go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's like, as I'm getting the picture taken, I should announce, I'm a UC fan, just so you guys know, I'm really a UC fan. Just wanted to get the mighty.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. I feel like I'm gonna have to basically turn in my chud card because of, like I said, my heart has been softened. This weekend for Father's Day, I got some build time to myself, and I snapped together two model kits actually.
Cool.
One being the premium Bandai high grade Desulter from Mercury. it, this mobile suit really didn't get a lot of airtime. Like obviously, Guel piloted one briefly
Oh,
during that little terrorist attack.
yeah.
Um, but one of the coolest, like Witch from Mercury suits, because of all the gimmicks that it comes with, uh, both forearms have blades, like retracting blades installed on them. Has a machine gun, a bazooka, and then it's also got like a troop carrier that snaps onto the back. So like the way that they carried out that attack, the
Yeah.
terrorist attack on Plant Guetta, you can have like the troop carrier drop down, and it has like a little flap that opens up. So
Wow.
it's got a lot of accessories for, a humble little guy. I just wish that it wasn't P Bandai because, like, I kinda want, like, 4 or 5 of them.
But also, okay, those gimmicks sound cool, but the thing looks great just as a mecha in the first place,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
even though it's just a grunt suit that we saw a little bit of, it's still because I think it reminds me, GM Sniper or, Master Chief.
I was gonna say, you know what it really looks like is ODST. Like, yeah.
Yeah, ODST, yeah, that's a good one. So that's a really cool design just in general.
Yeah,
I
I
need to
love
get
it,
that.
man. Very cool suit. And so then the other kit that I snapped up, and shout out to Zionic Shadow here and the boys over at Principality New York. I finally put together this full P Bandai Ilfrith pre-production type, also from Witch from Mercury. And this is a unique kit because I've been working on the LED setup for this kit for quite some time, and I think that now, having the full kit in my hands, I have a different perspective about how to go about wiring this guy
Oh,
up. Um, so I thought that it would be a little easier to work with this, building out the permit scores 4 through 8, since this one only
ooh,
has the chest and head unit like that needs to be lit up, as opposed to like the Calibarn where you have to do the
with
legs and the
yeah.
and so yeah, I've been working on that. But it didn't occur to me that, instead of just having wires dangling out of the crotch or something that power this thing, because like obviously you're not going to fit a battery or a microcontroller inside the body of this little skinny thing. But what I discovered is that the backpack has just a unique enough shape to it and just enough size that we can fit our little microcontroller right under the base of this thruster here on the back. And so the
Wow.
question is like, does it fit in there? Physically, TLDR, yes. Simple answer, yes, but it's going to take a little bit of finagling. But the idea is basically I'm just going to have an exposed USB-C port here. And so when I want to light this thing up, we plug it in. But if I don't want to have it lit up, we can just unplug it and everything still works fine. We don't have to worry about like, you know, wires dangling out of it, which I think that that's going to make it a much more appealing overall design.
Yeah. No, you know what? I gotta say the Elfrith design in general is probably one of the best modern AU Gundam designs.
That's a bold statement.
I think it is just because I'll see, and maybe it's because there's a username by Axis Corp in the Gundam Explained Discord, and he paints these things up white and black, and it looks so good. Like I feel like if you can see something in black and white and it still looks good, that just means it's a good design.
That's a good way of looking at it. It's kinda like when you can identify something by its silhouette, like,
Yeah.
that's how you know it's and, I mean, come on, it's got so
Oh, that's good.
unlike every other Witch from Mercury mobile suit that has bits, this one has the closest to what looks like a Zaza, like,
Yeah.
the backpack flaps. Of course, it's got 10 funnels per rack, so there's actually 20 total bits,
Whoa.
um, which these were a pain putting together 20 bits, and
I bet. Wow.
so 10 bits per pod. But yeah, so I'm very excited. Thank you, Principality New York, for providing that kit. We are definitely going to be wiring it up here soon. And speaking of wiring, does that mean that I stopped working on the V8? No. In
Oh,
fact,
good.
I finally got a good looking cast of
Wow.
the backpack reactor coil for the V8 from Gundam Wing. And furthermore, I actually cast it in translucent black resin. So you can see here, I'm holding it up and it's like a little black piece. But then, like, if I were to take a light and
Oh,
shine through it, you can actually see the light through it. And so, when it's off, it's going to look like plain metal. But then when the lights come on, it like lights up and gets reactive. So I'm very thrilled with how this came out. This
yeah.
is this was like the sixth
Oh, I
cast
was gonna
part.
ask
So
the 6th, which I mean, hey, if you want it to look good, I feel like,
yeah,
that's not bad.
yeah, you got to commit to it.
Yeah.
So I guess leaning into the hobby tip of the week, I would say, if at first you don't succeed, keep trying.
Try again.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm really excited. We're moving along with some of these projects that I've had sitting on the back burner, and I think they're going to come together here.
Yeah. Man, I it's pretty cool to see that you built those 2 because those 2 kits are cool, and they're kind of like you've always said, they're kind of out of your, purview of what you like about Gundam, but, it's exciting,
Yeah.
though, to see you build stuff like that, so
Yeah, and so as a result of that, one of the things that I've been thinking about is, well, how, like, what do the permit scores look like? Because, I was like, when I originally watched Witch from Mercury, I was like, not really into it. I didn't give it the best chance, to be honest with you. So, like, as I've been taking care of the baby, I'll just have Witch from Mercury on because I'm like, well, what does permit score 3 look like? What am I going to look for when I'm coding up the LEDs and how they're going to operate? Like, is it just on red, or does it have like the kind of the oscillating red?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, for instance, when you hit permit score 8, is it just on blue, or does it like kind of oscillate between red and blue when it goes on? Things like that. And what I realized is, yeah, Witch from Mercury is not that bad. And in fact, it's so much not that bad that my wife started watching. Like, she's like sitting over there, like, oh, what are you watching? What's
Well, is that maybe a bad thing? If your wife ends up liking no, I'm joking. It's
I
at
mean,
the end of the day, it's a good thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. So yeah, I there's a lot of Witch from Mercury things going on in the house here, and I don't know what's happening to me because I haven't touched a UC suit in, like, weeks
Uh-oh.
and weeks.
Yeah, that's right. It's either wing or Yeah, what you cannot make fun of me about seed anymore. No more sending those nasty DMs calling me some sort of seed stand. No, I'm joking.
Well, speaking of Wing,
Oh.
are you aware of the map event going on in G Generation Eternal?
Oh, yeah, I think so, where you have Death Scythe is the,
Yeah, the banner suit is the Death Scythe Hell from Endless Waltz, and the special unlockables are actually not that interesting because it's Catra, but it's like Catra where he's wearing the Oz uniform, and then it's Dr. J in the Peace Million, which is kind of odd to me because I don't remember Dr. J
doing
being on the
any
Peace Million.
yeah,
The
I
Peace Million, I thought the captain of the Peace Million was that guy with the big nose that ends up being oh
oh,
no, you know what? It's
I
Duo's
can't
guy, right? The dude with the Hawaiian shirt, Howard.
oh, do we phone a friend for wing? I
There we go.
need to brush
Drop it
up
in
on my
chat if you remember who the captain of Peace Million is. I know it's not Dr. J though.
but
Um,
so in Eternal, you were saying the map because it's like the new level. That's kind of like an interesting thing where as you like get certain things from so that's interesting because it kind of goes back to where they're using classic gameplay, but they like inject it into some random side things, which gives
yeah,
gameplay.
and one of the coolest things is that it's one of those games where and the way they designed it is that you don't necessarily have to be amazing at it because one of the things you can do is you can spend your resources to acquire power-ups that are going to make it easier for you to beat certain levels. So like let's say you don't have a full wing team that's like maxed out. You can acquire like power-ups that will add, between 5 and 25% like extra health and extra attack so that you can still beat the levels and get to the stuff at the end. So,
It's pretty cool. I mean,
mm,
I as much as sometimes I'll complain about the monetization thing, blah blah. This is how you do a free to play mobile game with all the content, more content than I have to worry about. I don't even think, oh, I need to go buy something in the store. I mean, I can play, have fun, and yeah, they did it.
yeah, it's a good way to kill 20 minutes for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, well, that's interesting because then Robot Wars, Super Robot Wars Y comes out in August, right? Or it's called
Yeah,
something
are
like
you gonna
that.
pick that up when it drops?
Probably, because they're similar. I've always compared them, and I could be wrong, but my analysis of, like, Shining Force versus Fire Emblem. Like, they're
Hmm.
both turn-based strategy games, but, like, one's more character-centric and one's more just whole, like, army build centric, you know? And then they were showing, I think, an ad recently where it's the Witch from Mercury campaign that's gonna be. So they were like, "Oh, Steven will like this," and then Witch from Mercury
You
campaign.
know, they keep trying to get me, like Super
Yeah.
Robot Wars. In fact, at one point, I think Bandai reposted something where it was like Zeta in Super Robot Wars, and I almost hit like, and then I was like, "Wait a second, ew." Like I
Pain-based.
just default typically hit like and retweet on anything Zeta, but
No.
no.
Well, it's interesting too because I think with Super Robot Wars, I feel like it will feel like more of a traditional sit down and play through a game rather than, you know, again, I hate to say I don't want to complain, but Eternal doesn't feel like a sit down,
It's
session.
true.
Yeah.
As much as I love Eternal, and I've put obviously a lot of time into it, it's not stimulating. It's not like, oh man, I can't wait to pick up my phone again.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Although I've now got 6,000 diamonds, but I would normally spend it all, but I wonder if I should wait. I don't it's not like there's a suit that I'm really wanna I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because you got everything, right?
I mean, I haven't gotten any of the new banner suits.
Other than that, but you've pretty much got
Yeah, I mean,
and
I unlocked everything that you can do in just the playable game.
yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I would say is like if there is a particular suit in the main lineup of EX suits that you want, then definitely just dump everything you can into the premium assembly because what you're going to do is every time you pull, you get an exchange point, and once you get to 200 exchange points, you can just get a free EX suit. So, like, for instance, I actually
Wow.
just pulled my 3rd Zazabi when I was trying to get the banner suit. So, like, my Zazabi is at 2
Oh
stars
my.
right now, and I have 191 exchange points. So, if I get 9 more, like, premium unit assemblies, then I'll hit 200 and I can just buy a 3rd Zazabi to be that 3 star, and then I'll have maxed out the Zazabi. I wish that I had done that with the Zeta, but, you know, life being what it is,
Well,
I'm not gonna complain that the Zazabi is such a beast.
well, if it makes you feel better, I got a second Unicorn EX, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just dismantle it."
Did you really?
Yeah. 'Cause it was shortly after the thing was like, "Hey, make sure you're dismantling suits." Like, it was in that order, I guess, where it was at that time the game is telling me that, and then I rolled, I got that, "Oh, I already have this."
Well,
Yeah.
that's okay. I did actually dismantle one of the ultra rares. It was the narrative Gundam because I was like,
Hmm.
and at this point, it's like I wish I could dismantle pilots because it's like I don't want Jonah
Oh,
Basta. Like,
yeah, there's so many things that it's like, I don't need all this stuff. Like, I spend more
yeah,
time dealing with suits I don't care about, like, if you get multiples or
exactly. But there are certain tricks and things that you can do. Like, if you have enough of like the G shop points or whatever,
Mhm.
you can actually buy the upgrade materials for certain rarities. So, for instance, like
Mm,
I pulled an Ifrit knocked from like the unit assembly. You can't build that suit, but I was like, oh, you guys know how much I love the Ifrit, right? And then like, but there's no way I could ever max it out because how am I going to pull 3 more?
yeah.
Well, I had enough G Shop points to buy 3 of the super secret rare or SSR
Um,
like
yeah.
upgrade materials, and so I maxed out the Ifrit Noct. And believe it or not, that's one of my top 6 suits. Like, it's
Dang.
like Zazabi, Bawu, Quinn Mantha. I think now it's the GPO2, and then Ifrit, which
Wow, that's a cool lineup of suits. That's
yeah,
what and that's what makes this fun because it's like you don't need the EX suit to have a powerful, fun suit.
no,
Yeah,
no.
that's great. Yeah, like, I think I posted it, like didn't I go back and do that? I forget, it was, like, my Mark II or my Zeta. I did your suggestion of, and it just had fun destroying with it.
Yeah, man, the Mark II is awesome actually. Like it's for the longest time it was like my tank until I maxed out the Quinn Mantha.
Mm.
Um and the only reason that I think took its place is because of the map attack.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. It's nice to
But
have that.
but yeah, is what it is.
Video games.
So check out that map event if you haven't. Like I said, to me, it's not as exciting as like the Stardust Memory event because
Oh,
that was
yeah. That
like
was a good idea.
that was a lot more fun. But it's different. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's about time for us to get into the topic of the evening. Which, like I said, I'm not going to pull any punches here. We just saw episode 11 of Gquuuuuux. Uh, Adam, what did you think?
I felt like it cemented more than anything that this show is just for member berries. And you know what? That's fine if even Car Studio or whatever was like, we want to do this and we just kind of want to have fun. So, like, that could be the point, and that's fine. I guess for me, my expectations would go up and down because I'm like, okay, it looks like they're really trying to say something here. I was like, they're not. And when I say something, it's like meaning or speaking to the audience because this is the nature of what the show is, but there hasn't really been any speaking to the audience.
There
So,
hasn't been much speaking at
yeah,
all.
well, yeah, even the fact where I think there was a recent interview where they're saying Oshalia is really the main character, and it's like, yeah, I guess we figured that out after a little
Yeah,
while
no shit.
because to be honest, it's made it where then Machu, it almost seems like it was a waste of development.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the vibe I've gotten is that these Studio Kara guys, basically what they should have done is made a YouTube AMV of all their favorite moments from, Gundam, Zeta Gundam, and Char's Counterattack, and just not done any of this stuff with Machu and Neon, and Shuji, and clan battles. Remember clan battles?
Yeah,
Does
that was a
anyone
thing.
remember clan battles? That thing that happened? Like, here's the deal. The pacing of this show has me getting the law firm of Marks and Harrison on the phone to sue these people for the whiplash that I'm getting because of the breakneck pace of this stupid show goes from like, hey, we're doing clan battles to hey, now I'm in the military. Hey, by the way, there's someone trying to kill me. That's okay, they're dead. Now this person that was trying to kill me is now dead, and then their person is now dead. It's like,
And
dude,
the reason that's important that you bring that up is because what we're getting out of the show and what I think they're trying to play with is what happens to the zombie family now, and it's almost too convenient that in the span of a couple days, and they're all wiping each other out. And there was no
right.
build up to the Giran and Cassilia thing. I thought there was gonna be some after effect of Giran, but there wasn't. So to me, cool
No.
scene, completely useless.
It's very much a series of unearned moments,
Yeah.
and I think you and I have talked about this before. I've brought it up in terms of, like, The Acolyte, which, that show sucked, but, like, it had moments that it was like, "Ooh, that would be cool if it was set up properly."
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but yeah, unfortunately, that just didn't happen, and then, like, part of the benefit of having, like, an alternate universe, which this was always my critique of the show from the start, was like, do we really need the alt UC in order to make Machu and Neon's story important? Well, now I realize that their story was never important. It was all about just the UC member berries and like, oh, it's so cool that like they're in the same theater as it was in Zeta. Like that's neat. And I'm like, but why? There's no
Right,
it's
exactly, it's not earned. It's that whole thing, and I was telling you, it's like, you see a shot of water in Gquuuuuux, and people are like, "Oh my god, there's water in IBO." Oh my god, and
it's
it's like, "Come on, guys, let's." And I think what's interesting is there was that one shot showing reused art assets.
yeah.
So I think it's more of guys, it's not that they're kinda being clever, they're just they're able to quickly get things done by reusing whether it's a scene or reusing a feel or a look. And again, it's like these guys are lucky that they can do this because they want to do it. But I feel like the fan base is getting the wrong
And it's
things
it's
from it.
sad to me because, like, so many of the people so many of my mutuals that I respect that are Gundam fans are just, like, clapping over this stuff like seals, and it's like, "You belong to me. It's so good. I can't believe they did the Shar's counterattack song." And it's like, "But Amuro
Why?
wasn't in it."
Exactly. They play that song, and I'm like, okay, why? It's like, oh, the song. It's like, okay. Yeah, I mean,
And,
I don't know what to do with that, but well,
someone
oh,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, and then I was gonna say because a lot of the discussion too is there was someone saying, like, "Oh, I was right the whole time. Amuro was showing up at the end." It's like, well, pretty much everyone speculated that when the show first came out. They're like, "Oh, I wonder if Amuro shows up. Oh, that was probably Amuro." And that makes me think if we think back to the fan theories and speculation, nothing has met any of those extremes. Everything has been super diluted and okay, yeah.
Well, because they don't have time, because everything has been rushed, and they're trying to
Yeah.
fit so much into it that it just doesn't work. Like, and, someone brought up the theory that it's like, okay, so Lala wanted to protect Shar so bad that she created this universe where the zombies won the war and it saved Shar's life and he didn't get killed by Amuro. Um, okay, couple problems with that. First of all, she created this alternate universe where literally everything happens the same and like the zombies all kill each other. Like it doesn't like you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, and then, like, people have already done that. Like, if you ever read the House of M series of comic books from Marvel, like, the reason that that was so much better than this is because they actually, instead of trying to make up some other story about 3 side characters that don't matter to everything else, every comic book was about characters that you would want to see in that universe. It's like, hey, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, created a world that was like if Magneto got what he wanted and created a utopia for mutants. And so it's like, ooh, well, what are the Avengers doing? Well, Steve Rogers is an old man. He's not Captain America. And Iron Man leads a secret resistance against Magneto, which is kind of ironic because he has a suit made of
Yeah.
metal. Um, like, there was a comic book for each character that you would want to know, like, "Ooh, what are they doing in this universe where things are
Yeah.
different?" Well, what are you getting in Gquuuuuux is like, "Oh, I wonder what
Nothing.
Camille's doing."
Yeah.
Nothing. "Oh,
No.
but we know what Gates Kappa is doing, and we know Do Murasame," which is like
Well, and that's interesting you bring that up because I feel like when they were bringing that stuff into the show, they were actually gonna expand on the foundations of this because then it doesn't make any sense. I think what was this past episode where they're like, the zombies have control, but they're like the Earth Federation's trying to take space, and it's like, what is actually happening? Then what are the Titans doing? If that like it, it again, I am complaining, but it's I guess I have to take the show for that. It's just
Yeah.
showing these funny little things. I did get my hopes up though.
I'm honestly surprised that you and I arrived at a similar conclusion on this
Yeah.
show. I could have sworn that you and I were gonna be butting heads about this.
Yeah, I
Uh,
wasn't sure how you were gonna I remember when you showed me the thumbnail when we were talking, I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, we're on the same page."
well, shout out to Shirt Lad because he actually had the best comment earlier today. Is he said,
Oh.
"You know who the real G Cuck is? Is Oliver Xavier."
Oh
Because
god,
the guy didn't even get to pilot his mobile suit for one episode before Machu steals it and runs away with the
that
whole
doesn't
show.
make any sense for me. For as compelling of a character they made Shali a bull, it makes no sense for Xavier to do what he to question, like, especially because the Gquuuuuux was with Shalia. He knew that there was these operations going on. Can we does that make sense what happened to Oliver's character?
No, he got finned from the sequel
That's
trilogy of,
that's a
he
really good way to put it.
yeah.
I mean, but even it and yeah, even to the point to where it's like it doesn't I guess it doesn't matter if the character doesn't really do anything. It's just what the character did didn't make sense in context of the story that we were being presented this whole time, you know? So,
No,
like,
and
in
here
Finn, you thought he would be a Jedi, and then he gets a lightsaber, but there was none of that, and then
nope.
that had no bearing on the story, and I was like, "Well, then what are we doing?" You know?
Again, I think that a lot of it is just it's distilled down into these moments that they wanted to create, and they wanted to create the reference to FLCL, Fooly Cooley, where Machu jumps over just like, what's her name from Fooly Cooley, and she has, like, the guitar or the bass, I should say, sorry, the bass guitar, and she jumps over and does the splits, and there's the slow motion scene, like, it's like that, that meme where it's, like, the guy looking at the butterfly, and it's like, "Oh, is this a Fooly Cooley reference, or is this an Eva reference?" Like, literally everything in this show is an Eva
Oh,
reference.
yeah, okay, good point. Sunday night, I had an anime night at my house. This is the
What?
effort yeah, it was an effort I've been telling try to get more people to hang out. I had 3 people come over, and we watched Evangelion. I think it's called You Are Not Alone, the 1.11 or 1:11.
They named it after
And
a Michael Jackson song?
I gue yeah, I guess so. Actually, there's a parentheses around the "not." But so I don't know when this came out, maybe 2011, 12. It's like another remake of the original Evangelion.
Gotcha.
The art and I hate to sound like I'm being dismissive, but the art in that Evangelion is leagues better than Gquuuuuux. There are some neat scenes of Gquuuuuux when it's like 3D or something, but I'm like especially when it's shots, I've noticed this with more modern anime, if a character's far away, the line art is thicker than the other characters, you know what I mean, and it looks off, and I feel like,
Yeah,
don't draw it if it's not gonna look good, but I'm watching the whole Evangelion movie, and I'm like, "Well, they can do it." So,
it's true.
I wonder how much things were dictated by Sunrise.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
And it largely does feel like this was a series that they had to cram in something else in order to get it approved because it's like they clearly didn't want to make a story about Machu or Neon. Um,
Oh, do you remember wasn't it last Gundam Explained? I was, like, reading the marketing ideas behind Gquuuuuux. The whole point of it was to be international. You make it for everybody, and you make it for no one. So
Except
I
here's the problem, how do you make it for everyone, and then you pack it full of just member-berry references that only people that have watched the original series would get?
okay, so this brings yeah, that brings up a good point because let's look at Witch from Mercury. Or
Yeah.
something. That came out, that came and gone, we had our complaints. What kind of impact did it have on Gundam?
Well, it introduced a lot of horrible people to Gundam.
Oh, okay.
The worst kind of
The
fans in
dis
the world. No,
yeah, the
I'm kidding, but
I
no,
know
in actuality, it did attract a fan base to
the
the existing.
discourse,
Yeah.
like, that thing hap but I felt like, and again, this could be a personal thing. I didn't feel like Witch from Mercury really did anything to move the Gundam franchise forward at all. Like,
No.
it didn't, like, initiate a new type of way to do animation, a new type of show, maybe, yeah, presenting things in a short manner, but then they've done that before. So,
Yeah.
because then I look at Requiem for Vengeance, it's like, well, at least they're jumping into Unreal Engine 5, and I will say the Gundam EX is pretty badass to but that's a personal thing too.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Gquuuuuux.
that's
Gquuuuux, for me, it's like, what does this do moving forward for Gundam? Well, I thought it was actually going to just start another offshoot universe in UC, where the Zabi family actually was in charge,
yeah, which would've been awesome.
but they didn't do that. So that's just what's interesting about this. It's like, okay, that could have spawned a whole side Zabi UC, but
Yeah.
instead it's just more of, oh, there's just but what I'm getting at is in a year, will we look back at Gquuuuux and be like, well, you know what? It did come out with a lot of badass suits, and then maybe we can justify, oh, it put Gundam on the map more. But until then, I'm not too sure as a Gundam fan what to do with Gquuuuux.
Yeah, me either.
Okay.
Because it was basically by fans for fans, right?
That's your other point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That whole
So, okay,
yeah.
before we hop into
Okay.
this, all right. So, I wanna shout out this comment from Kyle, simply new type. Which from Mercury wrote great characters, not so much a great story. Hold on to that thought because we're gonna come back to it in here just a moment. But I do
Okay.
want to address this fandom, like for fans by fans mentality, right? Because we talked about earlier in the show, Jim Mickle, director of the new Gundam movie, the live action movie, he basically kind of outed himself as not a Gundam fan, and the way he did it was he didn't remember G Savior.
I like how we go to there, yeah.
Yeah, but so here's what I want to get at is that you don't have to be a fan of something to make a great entry into it. Because when you look at something like Requiem for Vengeance, Erasmus Brosdow, Gavin Hignite, both Gundam fans, and what did they do besides just use each episode as a way to pack in whatever thing that they liked? Is like, oh, well, I really like the 8th MS team, so I'm gonna sneak in this cameo from Kellern, and then I'm gonna sneak in the Goof customs, even though technically there was only one because it was Norris Packard's Goof. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I want these in here because I'm a fan of this, right? Same thing with Gquuuuux. Oh, I want to put a Psycho Gundam in there because I really love Zeta Gundam, and I want to put a Psycho Gundam in there. We're going to use the Zeta Gundam music, and then we're going to use Beyond the Time, and blah, blah, blah. We're going to do this thing because we're fans of it. Let me share with you guys an anecdote about someone who's not a fan. Uh, there was a trilogy of movies that came out, man, 20 years ago. You might have heard of it, Lord of the Rings, based on this like small novel series that came out like back in the 40s, 50s. Point is, one of the actors in this movie went on a late night show and was talking about when he got offered the role of Samwise Gamgee, literally the deuteragonist, the second protagonist to Frodo Baggins. Right? We've got Samwise Gamgee. He's in all three movies. He has one of the most like long speaking roles in the film, and did a fantastic job, despite the fact that Sean Austin, not an English guy, in fact, when his agent called him and said, "Hey, I've got a role for you. How's your English accent? You need to start working on it." He was like, pip pip cheerio. I can work on that, I guess." It was like, no, we're talking about American actor. We're talking about Rudy Rudiger. Um, this guy was the guy that they picked for Samwise Gamgee. Had never read Lord of the Rings. When he got the role, had never read Lord of the Rings, and he still knocked the role out of the park. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody because obviously, like, you can put the showrunners of, like, the Witcher series, they obviously had never read The Witcher, they don't like the video games, and they did a crap job with it. That is because they don't respect the craft and they don't respect the material. When you take somebody who is good at what they do, but isn't emotionally attached to the franchise that they're in, then they can deliver an amazing performance like Sean Austin did.
Dude, and another example, Andor.
There you go, Andor, perfect.
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I like because Jim Mickle, especially after kind of researching into him, seeing the interview, he comes off as a craft man. He is being hired for his craft because
Exactly.
when I look at Sweet Tooth, I didn't watch the whole thing, but the beginning was a disaster scenario that you would get at a Gundam, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is filmed very competently," and the fact that he was able to handle that, and apparently the show has child actors too, and that's a big deal.
Dude,
Um, and in the interview, how he said talked about framing. He kept not they kept, but using that term framing, it's very specific, and that
oh, yeah.
to me, that's kind of like a clue to them just doing the original Mobile Suit Gundam in live action.
Yeah,
Why else
and
would you say framing unless it's in reference to something?
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
there are directors that is, like, their whole thing, what's his name? Eggers. Like,
yeah,
framing is all of, like, in to the degree where he'll even change the,
aspect ratio.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know
See,
what you're talking about
this is
exactly.
this is why I love talking to an aspiring director
Oh,
about directorial decisions that are made,
yeah, I
because
love
yeah,
talking to
you
them.
get it,
Yeah. No,
and
yeah.
I think that, yeah, if you can find somebody who's good at their craft and respects the IP, they don't have to be a fan of the IP. That is your winning combo. Because if you go out and you get a fan of the IP, then they're just going to make a fanfic.
And remember how long Jordan Vogt Roberts was attached,
True.
which you could just easily just have him make the movie. He's already made a CGI huge motion picture for Legendary before. So it obviously came from something deeper. After working with Jordan Vogt Roberts and being like, "No, this is not the direction we wanna go." And not only did they mention Jim Mickle the end of last year, that they announced production would pre-production start April 1st, we still
Yeah,
don't have much information because they're taking their time.
true.
I know there's people that are cautiously optimistic or whatever, but I'm totally
Yeah, let
op
me take a look at the poll results here because I put it over here in the chat. How do you feel about the latest Gundam live action movie news from Jim Mickle? We've got 20% say he's the right man for the job, 7% say get him out, he's not a Gundam fan, 53%, the large majority say he cautiously
yeah.
optimistic, and my favorite, 20% say Sydney Sayla Sweeney, heart eyes emoji.
Which is cool that he confirmed that on the interview also. He's like, "We've got Sydney Sweeney." It
Yeah.
it's great.
And
Also in
ultimately, I think that that is gonna do more to attract an audience to Gundam. Like,
yeah,
if you're talking about, like, "Oh, well, we wanna attract a global market," then you need to attract a marquee actor to it.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. That's why I'm excited. So that's why I'm more than cautiously optimistic. Like, if they're gonna have Sydney Sweeney involved at a time right now where she knows she can do whatever she wants and she's actually producing video game related flicks because she knows where the money is, I feel like she knows
I
what
thought
she's
she was just making the, bathwater soap.
doing. See how smart she is?
She's brilliant. She's a shrewd businesswoman. No, I think Sydney Sweeney's a lot of fun. Like, just, like, hearing her talk during interviews and stuff, she clearly kind of she's in on the joke with you, you
I
know?
have never I think I saw some of Madam Web, but I don't think I've seen a movie with Sydney Sweeney in it.
I mean, there's that, romantic comedy she was in with,
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I know you're
Glenn
talking about the
Powell.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but, but yeah, so look, man, I'm gonna say it, and you're probably gonna have to take away my chud card, but which from Mercury is better than Gquuuuuux? It's
Okay. No, I think that's okay. Here's how I would put it because 'cause I've done this.
ooh,
Gquuuuuux is a great background show that you don't have to pay attention to.
Okay.
You'll hear the music, you'll hear the sound effects, and feel right at home. But which for Mercury, the thing with that is the characters. They are cool. That they nailed that part,
The
but you
supporting
wanna
cast
pay
is
attention.
fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I would compare them as like Gquuuuuux is like eating stale gummy bears. It's like it's empty calories, but it's sweet. You like them,
Yeah.
but they get stuck in your teeth a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Witch from Mercury is like someone made a fantastic pizza and then they snuck like a bad ingredient on it. Like,
Oh, that's a good one. Like olives.
well,
I
I
don't know if
love
you
olives, but
see, and that's the thing, everyone loves olives. I don't know what it is. I don't
I
like
guess
olives.
it depends on the type of olives. But like, I don't know,
Oh.
maybe they put tuna on it or something like,
Oh, yeah.
and like I don't necessarily mind canned tuna, but like,
Not
on a
on the pizza.
pizza, not
Yeah.
my thing. So like, you know, the the body of it is there, the meat of it is there, but then you also have like this weird bittersweet taste going down. And I've been on record as saying like Witch from Mercury has weak protagonists. Like Soletta and Mjolnir are just not compelling. I think Mjolnir is worse than Soletta. Honestly, I think Soletta gets a tough rap from people online. I didn't like the mobile suit designs, particularly the Gundams themselves. And then like the corporate storyline was written with like a middle
Yeah.
schooler's understanding
That
of
was the
of how
that
economics
part
works.
that's the part that kinda broke it for me. Like, I can like, Double Zeta Gundam, goofy character stuff happening, okay, but this
Yeah.
core story, you know?
Yeah, and especially, like, when Mjolnir goes up and pitches her company, and I'm just sitting there like, "Who's gonna give a 16-year-old girl 240,000,000,000 anything?"
That
Like,
there was so
especially
much
when she's written it in, like, crayon.
yeah, the
Um,
tonality of what I didn't know what I should feel threatened by, what I should yeah, that was a good example of
Now,
that.
that said, Guel's storyline, fantastic. He has this
Yes.
incredible, like, redemption arc that he goes through, but what people overlook is that a lot of that comes from Suletta's interactions with him. So, like, I don't like Suletta's, like, "Ooh, I'm sorry, ooh, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
Like, Suletta is very much like a female version of Goku after he got his head smacked open in Dragon Ball, where it's like, he's too dumb and naive to know any better, but he's just like, I love a challenge and I just want to like
Mm,
be friends with everybody. That's what Suletta is. And as a result of that, she has this like disarming effect on the characters that she interacts with. She does it to Guel, she does it to
yeah,
Elin.
right.
Um, and so like without that presence, those characters don't get the arc that they ended up having.
It's a
And
good point.
likewise, like I said, Elin's a great character. I love like well, I mean, all the Elans,
Yeah,
because obviously there's some growth that happens over that. And even in one episode, Elin 4 has a story arc that's more compelling than Soletta's. Shadiq, like with his like deep state operations, again, compelling character. Nika, same way, where it's like they have stakes, they have things that they can lose, that they're trying to wheel and deal behind the scenes to make these things happen.
yeah,
Um, I love that. I love when characters have motives and do things. I don't like characters like Mjolnir or Relina from Gundam Wing, where it's like, "Hey, look how great this person is. They're so smart." Like one of the worst things that a writer can do for movies and television is write one of their characters as being the smartest character in the world. Because here's a spoiler alert: um, the smartest character in a story is only ever as smart as the person that wrote it.
it's pretty
So
good.
you can't have like the smartest character in the world and then like you're
What
an
about in The
idiot.
Boys?
What's that?
What about in The Boys? Isn't that one of the characters?
Exactly. That's a perfect example of how not to do it. And I think that she was the most interesting when they kind of wrote her off for like 4 episodes and then she comes back at the end and says like,
Yeah,
"Who planned all this?" Like,
yeah, that's funny. That's a good point, yeah.
but then like let's compare that to what you get in Gquuuuuux, which is like again protagonists that I think are interesting, like they could have potential, but we didn't see any of it.
No.
And then they bounce around from like, well, I want to do clan battles to like now I'm in the military and
Yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah, even you brought up that thing about Soletta and being disarming, making the characters act a certain way. I felt like in Gquuuuuux, there's no consistency in how characters act to each other, to different characters. Like, and it's hard for me to really find any
Really?
sort of, it's the Xavier thing's the biggest example in the last episode. It's like, what? That?
Even
And
like
yeah,
Machu picking a fight with someone who she was friends with, she had known Neon longer than she'd known Lala. Think
yeah,
about that for a second. She was ready to kill someone that, granted, they're not even friends because it's like they've only known each other for a few days.
yeah, that's
But she's ready to kill her friend because of some girl she met in a brothel that is important to Shuji. Like, do you guys not see, like, the weird schizophrenia that's going on in this
because
story?
the motivation for Machu was to get Shuji anyway, or that between Neon and her. That's why, yeah, the things that happen don't make sense.
And it's like the one thing that everyone wanted to do was go to Earth, and then, like, once they got to Earth, the first thing that they did was leave.
I know nothing that it amounted to nothing. It's
It's
well, you know what? How often sometimes people say this is what happens, and sometimes it feels like this happens, but it can't be. That they are writing these episodes one at a time,
I sure
you
hope
know,
not.
and then eventually, okay, now we need to throw this in. Let's have this happen. Because that's what it seems like. Because when you watch the first episode, they seem more drawn out, deliberate. With Machu, like I felt like that whole like her first meeting Neon having the little thing. And then after that, she's like full speed. I don't know who these characters are, but let's have them do this and this. Yeah, it really felt
Yeah,
like that.
again, I think that the characters are slaves to the plot, where instead of characters doing things deliberately in order to move the plot along, the plot dictates that they have to be that Neon has to be in the G-Fred and Machu has to be in the Gquuuuuux so that they can fight one another. Doesn't matter how they got there, just that they have to be there. And so then, you know, I
Dude,
guess
they even say it by just speaking on knowing there's a Zeknova and then there's another universe. They're pretty much even saying we're being dictated by these rules of this universe emergence, and but they're not doing anything interesting with it. Even if next episode Amuro shows up and fights Shar, I mean, what does it mean?
which, dude, the most interesting thing that they could have done was have Amuro be the one that was texting Machu to help her escape.
Yes.
And instead it turned out to be Shar again. It's like, "Oh, it's me, Shar, again." Like,
Yeah, and then do we want to talk about how like the thing happens and then he gets his Shar costume on all of a sudden? You know what
which,
I'm talking about?
yeah, yeah, where, like, basically there's, like, that pulse that kind of resets him back into Shar,
Yeah.
I guess.
Like, what is
But
that supposed to signify?
well, and so, like, let's like, breaking it down as, like, okay, let's say there was this cosmic wave that once it hits you, it turns you into whatever that alternate version of you was.
Yeah.
Wouldn't Machu disappear then?
I know, that's what I'm saying. It
Like,
doesn't make sense
it
other
doesn't.
than just to be like, "Look, Char's in his costume."
Oh, he look, the epaulets are waving in the in the wind, like,
Which then that's a cool new animation we have in the years going, in the future.
I guess so. It's something.
It's
It's,
something.
it's one of the Gundam series that has ever existed, but it definitely,
Yeah, it's a Gundam series.
yeah, I gotta say, it's not even that I hate it, I'm just disappointed because
Yeah.
it feels like there was so much potential, and I was so excited for, you know
Ex I think the thought of a Gundam story taking place in an alternate UC, there's so much that could have done, but it didn't do any of it. You know what I mean? Like it just did just a here's some things. It didn't do like this is actually what the world would be like. This is then how the factions would fight. Then this would be the politics going forward.
and can we talk about one of the wasted opportunities here is and again, I'm gonna reference Witch from Mercury because the Witch from Mercury prologue, man, did that suck you in.
Yeah, that's
That was a good
it was
freaking
pretty dark.
prologue. It has this dark ending, the happy birthday to you. It's like, what are they gonna do next? Like, what? And then the best part is the first episode, you're like, well, there's like a 17-year time skip. Like you don't it takes you like 4 or 5 episodes to start piecing together what happened in that time span. Let's look at how Gquuuuuux handled Prologue. Prologue movie comes out, and then the first episode of the anime is the second or third piece of the
Oh,
movie
yeah.
prologue, and then the second episode is the first part, and then the third episode goes back to the fourth part of the movie, and then in the sixth episode goes back to the second part of the movie. Like, what a waste.
Yeah, and it again, it feels like I could feel it because I just watched that Evangelion movie I was talking about.
Right.
And so that, and if I was to go by like Requiem for Vengeance, uh, that has the fleshed out political or the faction, story of it. You know what's going on, because we know the backstory. They're trying to escape, but it's pretty.
Yeah,
But with so when I get to Gquuuuuux, I'm just kind of like you said with the pace. It's like, okay, is there this cohesive story? No. Okay.
doesn't feel like it.
And then sometimes animation looks like it's taking a back seat because I just watched Evangelion. You are not alone, and it's like, yeah. So it's that thing where with the Acolyte, where when a lot of people are mad about it, but you don't really know why. And then you realize, well, just the baseline for Acolyte was the writing. But I would even say for Gquuuuuux, it's the baseline, the deliberateness of a story. I felt like that wasn't at all part of making Gquuuuuux.
No, for sure. It feels haphazardly, thrown together, and
But
it's unfortunate.
the other flip side to this, and I know we make fun of people, but it's like all the excitement people have online for the memes. And I guess that's where sometimes I disconnect with the larger fan base because a lot of times you're just when we said pointing out things that yeah that exists, but
Yeah,
that
can
but that's
can we do, like, the 2 soy face guys that are like,
oh well, and so then that is the how deep any Gquux discussion is online because that's all there is. There's
"Yeah,
nothing beneath the surface of the member berry. And I think that's also bothering me. So then when I'm wanting to have a discussion, I'm like, wait, there is nowhere else to go with Gquux, you know?
yeah." So, I think that that's especially disappointing for guys like you and me, where we like to kind of dissect these stories and, like, see what the writers and directors were trying to get at, and
Yeah.
what were you how did you phrase it earlier? Like, what are they trying to tell us?
Yeah.
Um But, so Ultronum's brought up a good point in chat here. I wonder if all of this is the result of having to stick to the 12 episode format, so any and all development would have made this flow better, simply couldn't be done. That could be it, but I think that when you look at things like IBO and Witch from Mercury, which were similarly on a 12 to 13 episode per season format, they clearly had a direction that they wanted to go, like even within that short time frame.
Yeah.
And the
Even,
pacing is so much better in those. Like, even with Witch from Mercury, I think that the pacing is quick. Like, there's a lot of,
yeah.
acceleration, but every episode, it's like, okay, she duels Guel, and then she duels Guel again for, like, the rematch. Then she duels Elin, which, like, kind of sets things up. Then she duels Shadiq, and it's like each duel represents, like, kind of inching forward the story.
Yeah.
And every duel, you get to learn more about those people. So it's like, Guel, the first duel, it's like, okay, we learn the rules of the school where, the holder gets to marry Mjorne. Then we learn that Guel is like this complex character that's trying to impress his father, and we get to see that first hint of where Suletta is redeeming him because everyone starts picking on him for losing, and she's like, "Don't pick on him for losing. Like at least he's trying. Like you guys are running. Like you guys are cowards." And he's like, why are you defending me? Like, and that's like, to me, like I said, Suletta triggers that change in him. Third episode where you see Elin fight, and it's like, oh, Elin's not one guy. Elin is like five different guys. Like there's a whole backstory behind him. Then you get Shadiq's whole story, and he's like, hey, I want this Gundam for myself for my nefarious purposes. Like, that's why I want to duel Soletta and take it away from her. And it's like, you start to unpack each character with each episode. What they should have done with Gquuuuuux is instead of throwing every character into the first episode and then every character just scatters to the wind in the second episode, it's like build out that clan battle storyline.
Yes.
Like,
I'm glad you said clan battle because that was kind of the starter thing in our minds with what the show was going to start with. Yeah, it's not going to be this battle between, it's going to be a clan battle. And then even though it did expand, it didn't expand for the clan. It's like that didn't even need to be in it.
no, what a waste. They could have just had her steal the Gquuuuuux from Olivier Xavier, or I don't, however they, his name's Oliver Xavier, not
Yeah.
Olivier Xavier, like whatever they pronounce it as. But she could have just stolen the mobile suit from him when the Red Gundam showed up, and then gets kidnapped by Shalia Bull, and they're like, "Hey, why'd you steal this Gundam from us?" That's it. You don't have to have all of the clan battle stuff. It was like a waste.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we probably beat this horse to death. Well, actually, the horse was beaten for us. We just arrived at the scene of the crime.
I know, and it might have to get beaten again depending on what happens next week.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm glad that we got to get this off of our chest.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm surprised that you and I agreed so much about like where we're at with Gquuuuuux.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe they're going to turn it around and save it in the last episode. My bet is that if this does get a season two, we're going to get even more tonal whiplash from, because they're not going to let it go on the way that it's been going.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. If anything, I would think if I think it's already messed up because my thought was an ongoing continuity of a zombie regime. But that's
But three out of the four of them are gone. We don't know where
yeah.
Garma is, which again, the whole point of having alternate universes is so you can see like, oh, what happened to Garma?
Especially they went to Earth. You never know. He could have still been an Earth
Yeah, he and Isolina
liaison.
could have been president and presidentess of the first lady. I don't know, something. But was there any reason for Giran to have killed Degwin if Degwin wasn't going to surrender? The whole point, like the whole reason that Giran killed Degwin in the original series was
Just
because
because
Degwin was going to surrender
yeah.
at a Baoku, and he was like, "Bro, we're not gonna surrender. Come on, like."
Yeah. It's we'll
Mm.
see.
So, is what it is. It's one of the Gundams that has ever come out. Hopefully, we'll get some more good UC stuff in the
Yeah.
future. At the very least, I know that we have some Hathaway to look forward to. So,
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to that.
um, but in the meantime, you have to put up with Adam and I just speculating on these things. So, definitely go check out Adam's video where he breaks down the podcast appearance with Jim Mickle.
Yeah.
I definitely learned a lot from that, and of course, like I said, Sydney Sweeney. Let's go. Um, come check out the Gundam Explained show tomorrow, and
Yeah.
until then, Witch from Mercury still free to watch on YouTube, just in case you want a
Oh.
palate cleanser after Gquuuuuux.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call.
Or Gundam X on Tubi,
Oh,
there's other Gundam to be watched.
there's other Gundam. We're lucky.
Well, thank you guys so much for enduring our complaints. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. We will catch you next time. Cheers.
Deal.